allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Review, 094. Treasurer, collector, Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The board had requested the town council come here to inform the board of what the next legal steps are in the appointed treasurer collector election from this past April. So we've invited Lisa here to
Yep.
walk through the process for the board.
Thank you, Paul, Mr. Chair. So I provided this evening a memo to everyone. As you know, the election of the treasurer coincided with the same election of the question of whether the appointment should be, whether the treasurer collector position should be appointed or elected. So since it was held on the same ballot, the statute provides that then the transition immediately begins or at the behest of the Board of Selectmen, who is the appointing authority. So your bylaws give you the authority over the treasurer collector, but Paul runs the process according to the town administrator's provisions of the bylaw. So you would set up a process with Paul to make an appointment.
Okay. So the bottom line would be that it would be up to us to decide whether or not the treasurer, would stay on for a year or 2 years or whatever process we were looking for.
Right, that's correct. And, as I said in my memo, I think that, transition process is important. So given the length of time and what's going to move forward, so that's up to the Board of Selectmen to establish that.
Right. Gentlemen, any comments on this? We'll start over here with Bob.
Just that, for clarification, once an appointment is made, that's when the treasurer collector who is presently serving technically terminates, and then we can decide, if I'm correct, how long the transition period should be.
That's right. You can decide however you want to do it. And I think maybe a good example is what you did with the town administrator's position, right? So you decided John gave his retirement notice, I think, but you decided that there would be an overlap. And so, but if you make the appointment, you can only have one treasurer collector. So once you make that appointment, you can discuss whatever transition you have. You can bring somebody on before you make the appointment and then make the appointment on a date certain. But once the appointment is made, that person is the treasurer collector. You can only have one treasurer collector.
Okay, thank you. Jim?
Well, that was actually my question was, how do we negotiate that transition? And my question was, do we have two treasurer collectors at one point? You just answered that for me.
Right. You only have one. So you either bring somebody in to kind of shadow, if you will, or you appoint somebody as the treasurer collector and ask Mr. Curtin, the current treasurer collector, to stay on for a while. So however it is that you decide to do that, and quite frankly, you don't have to have a transition at all. That's certainly up to the board. But you can have one treasurer collector.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, just one question, Lisa. Excuse me. Sometime during town meeting, Article 37, how does, what differs from the bylaw article in the opinion here? Is there any difference at all? Or
No, the opinion says that the Board of Selectmen is the appointing authority unless otherwise established by law. And in your instance, the Board of Selectmen, the treasurer collector still would fall under the Board of Selectmen, but because of the way you have the town administrator do the appointment and hiring and management of certain department heads, the same process would apply. So it's not in conflict at all. It just further explains it.
Okay.
And to follow up on that.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. And to follow up on that particular issue, if in our discussions, because we actually appoint the accountant and the town administrator.
Correct.
If we want the treasurer collector to fall under that, we would have to then take a vote and go to town meeting for change of the bylaw.
You would have to change the bylaw, because right now, the way the bylaw is being presented tonight is that it would fall under those general appointments that the town administrator has. with the Board of Selectmen general oversight. So I believe the bylaw says the Board of Selectmen have the general oversight of X number of department heads, but they will be hired and managed by the town administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Priest?
No questions. I just think that it's imperative that we have a decent amount of transition period. Mr. Curtin has a wealth of knowledge, having been our treasurer collector for 40-plus years, and we want to make sure that there's enough runway for that next person picking up, that they're not missing anything.
Okay. One last thing. Because he's sitting in the room, Mr. Curtin, would you like to say anything on this? We're talking about your livelihood and your job.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly would like to speak on this. I think originally when the warrant article was proposed at town meeting, it had originally, the way it was discussed, was that the Board of Selectmen had the appointment or appointing authority and not the town administrator. No offense to Paul or any town administrator, but that was my understanding. So I think that one of the things that should be discussed tonight, based on what legal counsel is telling us, is that the way the warrant article is being presented, if the Board of Selectmen are against that, then we should be voting against that, and the Board of Selectmen should be offering a bylaw change that allows you as the board to appoint the next treasurer collector. And is it not my understanding, Lisa, that I serve until there's an appointment made, because I was officially reelected on that day, even though the same day, I understand there's a statute that allows them to appoint somebody, but I serve until there's an appointment. Am I correct in that?
Right, no, and the statute makes that very clear. You do serve until their appointment of your successor.
Okay.
And just for discussion, Brian, you're right. That's the way it was presented with the selectmen. My intent is to have a discussion and have that bylaw change come up in September, not at this town meeting, so that we have plenty of time to discuss it and vet it and.
I think that's the right and fair thing to do, Bob, and I think, as I've said in the past, I'm willing to work with administration. I'm not going to be here forever, obviously. When I had indicated I was going to retire a year ago, and then a lot of things changed at that point. John offered that he was retiring. Paul got that position. We were looking for a new town accountant. I think it was a great time for the treasurer collector to be leaving office as well. So that's why I changed my mind, obviously. And plus, I guess I wasn't really ready at that point as well. But I'm willing to serve as long as, the board has confidence in me and obviously wants me to serve. I love my job. I think I do it well. I did top the ticket. I think the residents feel I do a good job. I got the total vote in the last election. I've done that probably for the last 10 elections. I've topped the ticket. So I think that they have the confidence in me, and I hope the board does as well. And I think that what we should do then is postpone that warrant article that's on the agenda for this town meeting, as you said, and maybe have the board come up with how that language should be, is what the board wants. And that's all I have to say, unless anybody wants to ask me questions, I'm here.
If I
Yes.
could, Mr. Chair, I just to follow up on what Mr. Curtin said. So if you don't adopt any part of Article 36 or the second part of Article 36, it has no impact on what the vote already did. So you can delay that and draft a different article if you wish for the September town meeting. So doesn't change the fact that the voters voted to have it an appointed position, which would mean that the Board of Selectmen appoint that position.
So if we would have pulled that and just readdressed the whole issue in September, we're
Does,
good.
it is of no effect.
Okay.
So would the board like to discuss that issue about dropping those articles? I don't have my sheet with me. What articles would it might be? Would you say 36 and 37?
Article 36.
You want to talk about that for a minute, or we want to go into?
Yeah, 36 deals with both issues. It removes, the first portion of Article 36 removes the treasurer from the elected positions.
Right.
So that's true. That doesn't have any. So I don't know if you want to bifurcate the article or just withdraw it altogether. The second part puts in the list of people who essentially the town administrator appoints. You're appointing authority, but you have general control, but the town administrator appoints.
Okay. Gentlemen, would you like to discuss this, 36? Would you like to drop it? Would you like to make a motion on dropping this article until September?
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
on the advice of legal counsel, since it doesn't change anything if we do it then as compared to now, I would make a motion that the wording is just pull the article.
Well, I think you withdraw it.
Withdraw
or
it.
And definitely postpone it, I'm not sure.
The only thing I would point out is that this was submitted by the clerk and the bylaw review committee, so the board didn't actually submit this one, so.
So you would have to ask to move to,
So we-
But on the
Indefinitely
same hand, if it
Right.
doesn't change anything by voting, it doesn't
Nope,
affect
and then
anything
you
what we do
can-
in September.
you can change it back in
Okay,
September.
then I withdraw my motion.
So we'd have to ask the clerk to withdraw it if that was to be the case?
I believe so, given that your practices, because she's the sponsor of the article.
Okay, and our clerk is here?
This evening she'll be here.
Okay. Well, any other comments or thoughts of this? No?
I'm fine.
Okay, everyone's good? Brian, anything more to add?
No, I just think that, it should be withdrawn if that's what the board wants to do, is make the appointment. I think that, request Amy, I mean, you guys could take I would think that they could take a vote of the board to say that they'd recommend withdrawing it. I think that might be in order.
Okay. Remind me to talk to Betty. I know it's only gonna be down the hall, but remind me to talk to, I'm not Betty, Amy, I'm sorry. I can talk to you right here. I can talk to you right now.
Amy's there right now, I'm going down there, obviously, I'll tell what happened at the meeting,
Okay.
I can discuss that with her,
And
but
I'll be down to talk to her. All right? Awesome. Thank you, Brian.
Thank
Anything
you.
else? Paul, any? No, we're good? Okay. Thank you. 095, approval, water request. Or waiver, I'm sorry. And this is.
Good evening, sir.
I'm sorry?
Mr. Buckley is here with us,
Okay.
and they've submitted a public hearing, which, according to our bylaws, doesn't appear to be even necessary.
Yeah. Let me explain what I did, Mr. Chairman. Burlington has what is called an earth removal permit, and historically, an earth removal permit in a lot of communities have those, the origin was really to control quarry activities. And they do regulate those in certain communities, and Burlington at one time, with the sand and gravel site, had an ongoing quarry activity or substantial removal of soil from the town. You have a general bylaw. By the way, before I begin, can I say hello to Lisa? Hello, Lisa. We go way back. Glad to see you. Your bylaw generally requires an earth removal permit for the removal of soils from a site. There is a waiver provision, which is 4226, that if the soil is associated with the construction of a building, landscaping, et cetera, that you don't have to have a permit to do it, the board can waive it. We weren't sure which way to go. We're getting close to getting the building ready for a certificate of occupancy, so we figured we would file just in case you don't grant the waiver, so that would be on your next agenda to get the permit, because it is so critical, because you've got a mound of soil that was excavated from the site. By the way, has complied with all the procedures. We had the Board of Health test it, and I believe they've notified the Selectmen's office as to the results of those testings, so it's clean fill that has to be exported, but it's moving it around on the site so that we can do the work to get the building finally done. So under maybe if I'll just read so you can see where I'm coming from, on 4226 says, the board may waive the issuance of a permit for the moving of earth entirely within the individual parcel, if not in violation of any bylaws of the town, which is why we complied with the Board of Health, provided that all minimum standards and limitations of this section are complied with under the following circumstances: in the construction of a building, of a road, public or private, as part of a farm, garden, nursery, or cemetery, and when incidental to landscaping, construction of swimming pool, et cetera. Those aren't So this is all soil that was the result of excavation and the development of the site. And we're trying to get it off the site as quickly as possible so we can finish the outside landscaping. So I'm asking that the board waive the issuance of the permit. If you so choose not to, then we'll be back next week requesting a permit.
Mr. Sagarino?
The only thing I'll add for the board is, this is kind of a unique thing that we don't deal with all the time, so I did some calling around. Engineering has no issue, conservation has no issue, Board of Health has no issue, and the only thing that people seem to remember is this was something that dated back to the quarry days. So I think Betty and I were discussing that this might be something that we asked the general bylaw committee just to review and see if it's something we really need at this point in time. Because it comes up from occasionally, according to Betty, and nobody really seems to understand the benefit of what we're trying to do with this bylaw. So I think, again, there was no issues from any of the departments, and I think it's something that we should ask general bylaw review to just take a look at, just to see if it's necessary in this day and age.
The only thing I would add to that, if I may, Mr. Chairman, is that the procedures to have it tested by the Board of Health, I think is critical. So and that is done, and we have done that. But even if you were to eliminate this or streamline it through the bylaw review, I would still have the Board of Health test the soil, because you don't want to be exporting soil that has issues, so. Nor should you be importing soil that has issues. Either way.
All right, we'll start, Mr. Priest, anything?
No
Start on
questions,
this end?
no.
No. Michael?
The only thing I recall, we had a hiccup a few years ago with some abutters and development on Muller Road there. Muller Glen Development, the Mary Cummings folks actually filed a suit against us at one point that was eventually dropped. But we haven't heard from any abutters or anything.
No.
No, and we did some notice of, Mr. Runyon, just on that point, we have been in, through Northeastern, in contact with the Friends of Mary Cummings Trust, as well as the trustees. And one of the conditions for the permit for the development of the Northeastern site was just that, and they are working towards the finalization of a memorandum of understanding between the City of Boston, the trustees, and Northeastern. And we've had constant communication with the planning board staff as to the status of those discussions.
Okay, very good.
Takes?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just more of a logistical question. The process, do you plan on having it slowly removed, a couple of trucks at a day, or just lining a bunch of trucks up and taking it all out at once?
It'll be coordinated. We want to get it off, and the route would be up onto 128 as quickly as possible. And I don't know where the ultimate disposition is, but, as quickly as we can get it off-site. And frankly, you want to do it now while it's moist, so you don't have a dust situation. But it is impeding the finalization of the building, because if you go up there, you can see the pile, and you have to move it to do certain things, and, we just want to get it off-site.
Oh, I was actually going to comment my thought was to get it off as soon as possible too, because the ongoing day after day, truck after truck would disturb the neighbors.
I can assure you, my client would have had me here last week if you were meeting.
So I'm just trying to think of the
Yeah,
residents in the
yeah.
area.
Mr. Hogan?
One quick question, Bob. In the bylaw, when it says we can give a waiver, does the Board of Health inspection still remain in as part of it?
Well, it says if you comply with all the requirements. I've always interpreted it that way. That's why I made the comment that if you do change this, or you have bylaw review look at it,
Yeah.
I would say my professional opinion would be that if you do a waiver, that is part of the waiver request, that you have the Board of Health or test data submitted to the town.
Automatically?
Yeah, I do think that's a critical component.
Okay. And I'm sure the Board of Health would agree.
Yeah.
The only question I have is, a while ago, we had a company in here that was doing a big job, and they had trucks going in and out, and they had a route that was given to, who'd they give that route to? Was it the Board of Health or
That
the
was very
planning?
specific, because
Right,
it was a small neighborhood.
it was a small neighborhood, but with it was stuff, is it contaminated? We don't know that yet, or is it not?
No, it's been tested.
It's been tested.
Everything
Okay.
has been tested. I believe when I spoke to Christine Mathis, she told me she had informed the office that, they're totally satisfied with the testing.
Okay, because
Yeah.
if it was,
No,
if it
I-
was contaminated, and something happened
Absolutely.
to fall out of the truck on the way to the.
Mr.
site,
Chairman,
where
you're
does that-
absolutely
Where does
correct.
that leave us as a town or
And
as
where
a
does it leave the owner of the site
community?
also? So, yeah,
Right.
absolutely. That's why I'm saying that if you have bylaw review, look at it
Right.
and change it so that you don't clog your agenda with these types of requests, then you should, you do have it, it could be interpreted a number of different ways. It says that all minimum standards and limitations of the section are
Well,
considered.
Let's get right down to the bottom
Right.
line here. There's two lawyers in the room, and I guarantee if I gave you both the same subject, and halfway through I change it
Cool,
over.
Lisa,
you're
we'll
both gonna
probably
change your
agree.
mind.
We've had a lot of.
This is how it works. I get
We'll
it.
probably agree.
Yeah,
right.
That's all I'm saying.
But, no, look, it's prudent to have it tested
Yeah.
in today, for your protection.
Yes, absolutely.
And our protection.
So when a motion's made, I'd like to see someone put that in there that, it's to be tested. Paul, do we have anything else?
That's all I have.
That's
Mr.
all we
Chairman.
have? Thank you. Okay. Anybody want to,
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve a waiver request for an earth-moving permit for Northeastern University, 145 South Bedford Street.
okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Bob with the waiver. All in favor? Aye. Five
Mr.
zero.
Chairman, if I may, I will send out a notice tomorrow to all those who received legal notice,
Okay,
so advising them that the waiver was granted so they don't have to, not that, it's all corporate clients in the area, but that, if that's okay with council, just so that no one happens to come
That would
here
be-
next week saying,
that would be fantastic.
All right.
That's a little above the game, thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a
And
nice
you'll,
evening.
and Paul, you'll put into motion the bylaw review committee and have
Yeah,
them look
with
at
that caveat of with the Board of Health approval.
Yep.
Good. Thank you very much for your time and
Thank you.
consideration.
Thank you. What do we have next? Water. 96, water, that would be Mr. Sanchez.
You finally came home.
I've been here for a couple of weeks.
That's not what I heard.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Board of Selectmen. Tonight, we're requesting, and I say we because I talked to the town administrator last week about this, we're requesting that the town rescind the full water ban that we had in place since last year, and to go back to our year-round outdoor water restriction, which basically it allows people to water the lawns on even or odd days, depending on the house number in the house, but never between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. In your packet, we have a couple of waivers that we will give to people that may need to grow new grass on a property, maybe a new lot, or maybe they be reseeding, et cetera. But it's basically the same year-round outdoor watering restriction that we have had in place in the past. We already received a letter from DEP lifting the emergency. We received that on Friday. So the only thing that is needed right now is for you to take a vote to go back to our year-round watering ban. I have to warn the town, the residents of the town, that we're still not connected to the MWRA. We still have the same water issues that we had in the past. Nothing really has changed, other than we've been pursuing the permit through the MEPA process. We're on step 1, moving into step 2 of a 3-step process, and that's probably going to take the better part of this year. So we don't foresee us being connected to the MWRA until sometime in 2020. And the reason I like to point that out is because, unfortunately, when we are in a situation like this in the summertime, little things will affect our production, and it may affect whatever other restriction that we may have to impose, maybe even further restrictions if needed. But right now, we've completed all our maintenance, so we're ready to go back to what we call our normal for this summer. So if you so please, then I will ask you to vote to approve the ongoing year-round water ban.
Hallelujah. We'll start with Jimmy.
Just one quick note for the residents, that when you mentioned the people who put in new lawns, they have to come to the DPW first for that waiver, correct?
That is correct. We give those in writing, because we actually check to make sure that they are actually putting a new lawn. And then, not that anybody has ever said otherwise, but, so we checked on that, and we'll give that in writing. to the residents. If they don't have the waiver in writing, then they are, unfortunately, they are subject to the penalties that the bylaw established.
I just wanted to make sure the residents were clear they had to go to the DPW for that waiver for new lawns. Is that still just April and May, September, October?
That is correct. So we have only a few weeks left in the month, although this year I don't think anybody actually needed any extra water. But the restriction will still be in
All right,
place.
thank you.
Mike?
I have no questions.
Nick?
No questions. I think that, Mr. Sanchez, you said it, it's very important that folks abide by this because we're not connected to the MWRA yet. And I think, I've heard from a lot of folks, they assume that we are. They assume that because, the last town meeting, that town meeting approved it, that boom, it all magically happened. The pipe didn't just appear in the ground, so I think folks just need to, bear with us, that we are going through all the proper channels and permits and all that wonderful fun stuff. And, just bear with us through 2019 as we work to get this all in place. And we appreciate the residents' cooperation in that.
Thank you.
Bob?
No, I'm good.
I think we're pretty good. I'm the happiest guy in the world because I have to talk about this one more time. You just ran out of town and went on vacation. Just left us all here. Okay, so have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we return to the year-round watering restriction that Mr. Sanchez has talked about and put a halt to the current water emergency situation that
Have a
exists.
second?
Second.
Jim. Motion by Bob, second by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Well,
Five
thank
zero
you.
zero.
What we'll do is we'll post this on the website. We'll use social media as we do to advertise it as well, and we'll give a copy to Rich so he can talk about it also on BCAT and newspapers too, so people will know about it too. So, but thank you.
That's effective immediately.
Yes,
Yeah,
we just
okay.
called it, so, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you. 097, final review and approvals, town meeting warrant articles. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we still have a couple of items left to vote for tonight's meeting. Due to an illness, we didn't have enough votes on one of these items last week.
My bad.
The one I had specifically for us to vote on the actual town meeting warrant was the BMEA contract. I know we went through the details of that with the board members, and we were unable to take a vote at the last meeting. So if we could put that one to a vote, it would
Absolutely.
be appreciated.
Absolutely.
Article number 28.
If there's
Whatever.
no discussion, I'll make a motion that we approve the contract for the BMEA.
Do I have a second?
Oh, yeah, $15,572.
I'll second that.
How much was it?
Second.
$15,572.
Yep,
I think it was more than that, right?
that's what's listed here.
Printed here.
155.
Oh,
So a slight
oh, wait a
difference.
minute, then I may want to reconsider. 155,572? 472. 155,472. That is my motion then, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that motion.
Second, so, motion by Bob, second by Jim, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, any discussion?
Abstain.
The other way around.
Two extensions.
Two extensions.
Two extensions, okay, I'm sorry. So it's 302. You got that,
Did you
Betty?
get that, Betty?
302.
Thank you.
Betty would wishes for us to vote on the entire operating budget again. The total only, not individually.
Whatever Betty wants, we are more than happy to accommodate.
Beat up the appropriate amount and,
Do we have to read them all off?
No,
no,
just
Okay.
in the aggregate, you already voted on your budgets individually, so.
Okay, great.
And this is a good defensive maneuver in case, for some reason, we find out we missed one.
Okay. So do I have a motion on voting all?
the
What is-
amount
what is-
right there on your sheet.
This
Right here.
right, this is the most current number.
That is-
I'll make, Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion.
Oh, okay.
We approve the fiscal year 2020 operating budget in the amount of $141,938,586.
That was received from town accountant today.
So motion by Jim, second by
Me.
Bob. All those in favor?
Aye.
500.
Thank you. We have the special town meeting warrant. I know the board voted to allow us to have the special town meeting,
Yes.
but there's two articles that they're advancing that you're very familiar with now. But Article 2 was related to affordable housing and the creation of affordable housing trust fund.
Okay.
And then Article 3 was a small cell bylaw for the general bylaws that Jim can update us on.
Want to update on the cell
Yeah.
tower or both of them?
No, I'll just do the cells, if it's okay. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Sagarino, members of the board, bylaw review discussed the two articles, the general bylaw article, the original draft. They did ask that we change it a little and make some edits. Those edits were sent to the special town council overseeing the small cells. She came back with the edits, and I assume we're gonna be presenting an amended warrant article for this and an amended zoning bylaw article based on the recommendations of the bylaw review and the edits that special counsel did to those articles.
Okay, so that will happen on the 20th, I believe,
the
next
20th,
Monday?
that's
So
correct.
we have time if those need to get
Right,
distributed.
bylaw review is meeting tomorrow night to review the general bylaw.
Do you wanna
I-
wait till Monday then to?
Yeah, now, the zoning bylaw needs to get this, I would assume they wanna review it a second time, the town council's edits,
Yeah.
so can we get that to zoning bylaw? I didn't know who to send it to on zoning bylaw.
Are we all set? Yes.
So we're not gonna vote on this tonight,
I'm gonna ask that we postpone that until
till Monday.
general bylaw and zoning bylaw review special counsel's edits that they requested.
So what we'll do is we'll do two different articles. We'll vote on one and vote on the other one. So hold it off. Yes.
Yeah, so the zoning bylaw is in the annual town meeting. It's at the very end, it's second or
Yep.
third to the last. So the zoning bylaw for the small cells is Article 39. So that's in the annual town meeting. And then the general bylaw is in the special.
But there was a discussion to possibly see if the moderator could take them up at the same time.
No, I agree. I just wanted to make sure that we knew that they were in two separate. I'm presuming we're not gonna get to Article 39 tonight.
Highly unlikely.
And why would that be?
She's been watching
It's just a
DCAT.
guess, I don't know. Maybe it's the weather.
Are there any other highlighted?
Mike has a question first. Hold on one second. Go ahead, sir.
Do we have a scheduled meeting next Monday night? Selectmen do?
No,
We do? Okay,
we will have to. We've booked the room anyway.
okay. That's my question, that's all.
Okay, all right.
I didn't realize we had a
Okay.
regular meeting.
Do we need, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Well, that's, yeah, go ahead.
Paul, do you need us to vote on Article 2 for the special town meeting?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a motion on Article 2.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'll make the motion to approve Article 2, to establish the municipal affordable housing trust. It's technically a housekeeping issue. The money's already, it's in an account, but John would like it in a different account.
So motion by Mike, second by? Second. Second by Nick. All those in favor? Aye. Against, abstained, 5-0-0. But
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Can we go back just for a second? I wanted to
Absolutely.
address the treasurer-collector thing for a second, because I'm looking at the bylaw. So if the warrant Article 36 passed, you can do, or didn't pass, or if you moved it, there's an exception in 2.4.3 for the town accountant and town council. So the way the article is listed now, it lists everything that are under the general control. And then in the town administrator's warrant bylaw, it says the town administrator will appoint all of those people that are listed under the general control of the Board of Selectmen, except the town council and the town accountant. So if you wanted to add a different exception to that, you can do it by an amendment to that bylaw in the fall.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to, when this meeting's over and we go down to town
Right.
meeting, I would like to talk to you and to Amy.
Sure.
And to find out, and Paul also and Brian to figure
Sure.
out what the best avenue for us to go is, and then we'll vote on it as a
Sure.
board to go that way.
Sure.
If everyone's okay with that. That's what I'd like to do.
Sure.
Okay, great, thank you. Now, we have to go back to Article 3, right? Because
Yes.
all right, so Article 3 is going to be postponed. Am I right?
Well, like you say, unless Jim can convince you guys, I know this is small cell, so we've already heard a lot about it, and I'm
Yes.
sure the changes that are being made, Jim, are probably not super material to
No.
what we're trying to accomplish or the goals of the small cell committees.
No, the intent is still the same. It was just some of the wording, bylaw review, had a few suggestions and edits, sent back to Attorney Brewer, special counsel, and she sent it back with the requested edits. So, I mean, the intent isn't gonna change, some of the wording will, so we'd have to amend the warrant article. But if we can vote on it with intent, I don't know if we can do that or not, but,
Well, I think, we've been voting on articles for a couple months now,
All right.
so I think there's been some minor changes to all of them, so I don't see that as an
All
issue.
right, well-
If the board, again, to possibly prevent an extra meeting on the 20th, might make sense to, if the board feels like you're comfortable with small cell, then we can,
I'm comfortable with it, I
I'm
don't wanna
Well,
speak for
I'm
everybody else.
Comfortable with small cell.
Jim, as we all know, you've done all the work for this, and I think we're all pretty much saying Hercules, Hercules. You've done a great job with this.
Thank
so
you.
if this is some-
what would the motion sound like, Jim?
Would be to approve the Town of Burlington policy application for small cell wireless, the general bylaw. What happens is, just to give it in a nutshell, put it in a nutshell, there's a policy, an application, and design standards in place. By putting the zoning bylaw and the general bylaw in, they will point to the policy. So when it comes to, small cells are uncharted territory. They're just starting to crop up everywhere. So they're gonna change, the technology's gonna change. In order to affect those changes in a timely manner, by putting it into a policy that can be edited and, approved and changed, is a lot simpler and easier than putting everything into a bylaw or a zoning bylaw, because those can only occur during town meetings. So technology could change today, tomorrow, next week, which gives us the flexibility to change the policy. The bylaws, the general bylaw and zoning bylaw, point to that policy, basically.
Second.
Was that the motion?
That's a motion.
Motion by Jim, second by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Get that, Betty?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now that I've thoroughly confused you all.
I think that's it for warrant articles to be voted, Mr. Chairman.
All righty, thank you. Minutes, we're at minutes. Do we have an approval for minutes of March 11th, 2019?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the minutes of our meeting on March 11, 2019.
Motion by Jim, second by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain. Oh, so 4-0-1. March 25th.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the minutes from our meeting on March 25th, 2019.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain, one abstention. Okay. We're on subcommittee reports. We'll start, Bob, anything?
None, thank you, tonight.
Jim?
I just gave you mine.
Mike?
No, sir.
Mr. Priest?
Only that I'm setting up meetings with my various subcommittees, and I should be meeting with them over the next week and a half. So,
Okay, great. Thank you. Chairman's report. I don't have much. I would just like to say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers yesterday. It was a great day for my family, and I'm sure everyone had the same views on their mother, and there's no one better than your mother in this world. As far as everything else goes, that was it for me. Town Administrator's report.
I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman, but tonight we do have one piece of old business that we wanted to bring up related to 117 South Bedford, and I think Betty already had you guys sign.
Yep.
When we talked about that last week, The board authorized me to sign the purchase and sale for that, which is already underway. Right now, we're waiting on the closing, which could happen any day now. So what we needed was another vote to authorize me to actually go and execute the documents on behalf of the town. So we were unaware of the closing date as of last week, and we're still unaware of the closing date, but it may be as soon as 48 hours. So we just need the board to authorize that so that we can have somebody sign those documents.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that we authorize our town administrator to sign.
I second.
Oh, well, I'm seconding it, that's pretty good. Motion by Bob, second by Jim, all those in favor?
Aye.
500, Betty. Is that, that's it? Does that count old business? Yeah, no.
Yes, that covers my old business.
Okay.
I know Mrs. Nash is here to
Yep.
address the board.
I was gonna check new business first, and then I was gonna go right to Mrs. Nash. Any new business we'd like to discuss? Okay, citizens' time, here we go.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay. Come on up. It's a little bit further walk than the other room, but I'm sorry about that. If we could get parking in here would be one thing, wouldn't it?
Mr. Chairman, gentlemen, my name's Valerie Weldon. I attended a few of these other selectmen's meetings on the same topic. Now, on January 14th, the chairman, Christopher Hartling, said that the Murray Kelly door would be unlocked by Friday, the 18th, and his word was good. The door was unlocked 1 hour before closing the COA that Friday. The minutes of that same meeting should also show, he said, the handicap parking would be restored as to what it had been before the door was locked and everything was taken away. But that has not happened. I think citizens should be able to rely on the word of the selectmen. Now, 4 of the spots, handicap spots, have not been returned at all. And some of the others that have been returned are not as they had been prior. Now, so the 3 have been returned and 4 have not, but they put 4 others out in the front. But the ADA says accessible parking spaces may be clustered in one or more equivalent or greater accessibility is provided in terms of distance from the accessible entrance. Well, the 4 that they put are 20 or 30 feet farther from the door than the ones that we had. So it doesn't work. It means that the Burlington is not in compliance with the law and could be determined as discriminating against the handicapped. And the word of the selectmen is not reliable. So I just came to ask you to fix it, make it what he said it was going to be, because that's the right thing to do. That's it.
That's it?
I don't want to, just as weather permitted, he said. I think it's going to be nice the end of the week. And the other gentleman, he did put back 3 spaces. And before that, they had been just with poles in front of them saying handicapped. And when it got windy, which it has been very windy, they blew over on the cars. So it's time to fix the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Could we ask, just to get a summary from DPW on?
I was going to ask him that right after I heard from Mrs. Nash, but we can do it prior to if you'd like.
Nope, I just wanted to make sure we got that in.
I'm pretty sure they're here on the same subject, so that's why I was. Mrs. Nash?
Mildred Nash, Town Meeting Member from Precinct 3. I originally wasn't going to come tonight because Valerie has done such a good job, and then I remembered that we came twice to the Board of Selectmen, just she and I, and absolutely nothing happened. And when we showed up for the 3rd time, only there were 6 town meeting members and some people from the ADA. We got this promise, and we were happy until a couple of I guess it was about a week and a half ago, I looked and the signs had all blown away and that we were back to square one. And I do have to say that Mr. Zagarino was on it right away. But the thing that worries me is that we got the action the first time right before the January town meeting, and suddenly we're at the May town meeting. And I fear that if it isn't done before town meeting ends, we have no leverage beyond coming before you and pleading with no guarantee that promises will be fulfilled. And one of the things Valerie did was got 90 signatures asking for these two things. This is something the seniors want. I think they deserve it. They need to get into the building, and what seems to happen is when they can't park at the nearest accessible entrance, they lose heart. I know because I end up having to take people to Scrabble, and they say, which door is closest to our room? And I'm thinking, well, you know, walking is good. Once you can't walk, it's a whole different issue, and I'm really hoping Wednesday and Thursday is supposed to be sunny. And if you have the paint, I would be glad to go up there and paint them if you need any help. So I'm hoping that it can be done before town meeting, because if it isn't, my only recourse is to put a resolution before town meeting to at least alert them to what is and isn't happening with things up at the Human Resources Center. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, you wanted to ask those?
No, I just.
Oh, okay. I'm
You know,
sorry.
a summary as to where it is and why it's where it is and when it'll be different.
Yeah, I think we got a listing from Marge of where all the handicap spots are now. What I don't have historical knowledge of is where we promised to put them, so I don't know if anybody here remembers how many spots were supposed to go by that door.
Yeah, there were 3 or 4 by that door there. They did, I do recall the meeting that Mrs. Weldon and Melly are talking about. Shortly after that meeting, we did put up, DPW put up some temporary handicap signs, and like they both said, they blew over. And I've seen them lying on the ground. I've picked them up myself a few times. It doesn't take much to knock those over, so I believe DPW is aware of that. They're waiting for the weather, and
They put in
we'll
some
restore those.
permanent spots within the past couple weeks.
Yeah, they put in 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
They didn't do them right, but they got it, they're all 3. They marked the bus the bus thing as a handicap, and they marked this little spot as the bus thing.
It's being addressed. There may be 1 or 2 spots
There should
that
be
have been
7,
overlooked.
there was 7 handicap spots before, 4 on one side and 3 on the other.
I think we have more than that now, actually, but we'll see. I'll take a ride up there this week.
Not by that door.
Could we please check with the door, the locking of the door, too, Paul?
That's not a problem. That's open.
That's been
That's
corrected.
open?
That's open. The
That's
doors are open.
unlocked.
The doors
That's
are
unlocked now? Okay.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I thought she was,
He said
I
it would
thought
be
she said.
unlocked by Friday, and it was. 1 hour before they closed.
Okay, all right. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Okay. Second. Second, motion and a second.